All right. G'day everybody. Welcome back to another edition of our video blog, the Aussie Ed video blog, Meet the Innovators. And I'm really excited to have someone very special with me this week and to be talking about the sort of topic that we don't always stop and talk about when we are discussing education. So for this particular episode of Meet the Innovators, I have Annalise Demel. Hi, Annalise.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you here too. And Annalise is from Oxfam Australia, and we're going to be talking a little bit about social justice. So, Annalise, would you like to tell us a little bit about who you are and so what you do and what's your role within Oxfam?
Yeah, cool. So I run a national program within Oxfam Australia that works with Australian school kids, and we largely have things like term projects, education resources and other materials for schools that really want to tackle issues of social justice. And we run the gamut from kind of national to local to international issues ranging from poverty to hunger to Indigenous health, corporate social responsibility, fair trade, a huge range. And the aim of what we do is to really engage students in issues that they care about. We're very into kind of student-led and inquiry-based approaches because we know that, unless you've got that that motivation and incentive coming from the students themselves, they're not always going to engage with social justice issues as authentically as they could do to create real change in the world. So yeah, and I've been at Oxfam for about a year and a quarter, and before that I was working at the Big Issue Classroom and a few other bits and pieces before.
All right, well, brilliant. That's great to have a little bit of an insight to what you're doing now. Listening to some of the things that you just said there, you were talking about really having a focus on a student-centered approach, and you spoke about the inquiry process and inquiry learning and trying to engage students. That's a real pedagogical focus, and I remember, as you and I have spoken about before, you're really sort of taking social justice and not doing it as it's always sort of happened, and that's why you're here to discuss some things with me on Meet the Innovators, but really looking at the next frontier, I think is the term that you used when we last discussed, what you really envisage social justice to be like and put out in school. So could you tell me a little bit about what you were thinking with that and why social justice is so important?
Cool.
And how it's going to look like in the future.
Yeah, beautiful. So look, when we're talking about, I've put the definition that I kind of work with personally on the table as being justice that's looking at things like wealth, opportunity and privileges within a society. So we're looking at stuff like dignity and equity and empathy and all of these kinds of things. And when we're talking about justice, we're not just looking at, the philosophical discussion rather of what is just, but we're also looking at how do we achieve justice? How do we, what are the processes in place that we can attain kind of just, a just world? And in terms of Oxfam, our kind of key goal is to create a just world without poverty. So this kind of idea of justice is very much at the heart of what we do as an organisation. So when you move that over to school kids, we know that the lives of children and young people are being increasingly shaped by stuff that happens in other parts of the world, whether it's in the next town across because that's where the local council is, or if it's decisions that are made in state government offices, or if it's decisions that are made by businesses globally, all of that kind of thing, or even decisions that we might make in Australia that impact on people in developing countries overseas. So we live in a really interconnected world in a way that we haven't. At the same time, we also know that the way that we're using resources in the world is, increasingly inequitable and unsustainable. So not only are we kind of connected, but there's also some injustices that are occurring as our connections are getting bigger. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is, the reason why I come to work for Oxfam every day is not because, I work for an NGO and I can pat myself on the back, and it's not because, my colleagues are ace, even though they are. The reason why I come to work every day is because I know that we can't achieve justice in the world, or a just world without poverty, which is Oxfam's motto, without young people. It's just not possible. Education is a really powerful tool for being able to create change in the world. And young people are the ones who, more than ever before, can actually lead by example, showing the world how to be ethical, how to be sustainable, how to be generous in all of the decisions that we make. Because for the first time, our students are the first generation that's connected enough to be able to make a difference, and also to be leading from the bottom in a way that they've never had an ability to be visible before. So in terms of, justice being this notion, this thing that we're trying to achieve, this set of principles, the idea of education. So where we're looking at is, how do we bring social justice to life for young people, for schools? How do we teach it, and that kind of thing? And for us, you mentioned before kind of pedagogical approaches. For us, our kind of pedagogy around global citizenship education is the idea of the learn, think, act approach. So, it's important for people to kind of learn about issues, to have those philosophical discussions about what is just, why does poverty exist, but sometimes when we engage with social justice, that's kind of where engagement stops. We do a lot of learning, and then there might not be a lot that happens next. So that's why we've got the 3 parts to the model. The next part that we look at is the think part, and schools are generally pretty good at this level too. So looking at, how do I critically engage with what we've just learnt? Is it right? Is it fair? But it's also taking it that next step further in kind of looking at, well, where are the power balances? What is power anyway? How does this happen? What's my role as a young person? What's my role as a consumer in actually, being part of this process? Where does my power lie? So it's a real kind of critical engagement. And then, when you get to that point, by and large, if you've got a topic and issues that are relevant to the student, for whatever scale, local or global, if you've got them thinking really, really critically, then the next step is a bit of a no-brainer, and it almost happens by itself. And this is the ACT stage, and this is where Oxfam and our education resources aim to support in a really deep way, because we want people and young people to be acting on issues of social. Want it, what's going on, and it's a bit stuffed, but there's nothing really that I can do about it, because there is so much, especially in the current age that we're living in.
Well, that was such a thorough answer.
I could talk about this all day, sorry.
That's awesome. And that's exactly what my video blog, Meet the Innovator, or the Aussie Ed video blog, Meet the Innovator, is all about. It's about connecting people with passionate people all over the world. And I think I said to you when I first began thinking about wanting to have a chat, which we're going to be running on Sunday night coming, about social justice, I put sort of out some feelers, and you reacted within seconds. And you were straight away. You were passionate, and you were off the mark, and you were keen, and that's exactly why I wanted to connect with you. And it's your vision, and you know what, your pedagogical insight that is going to make what you're doing relevant and sustainable for the future, rather than just paying lip service to an issue that's right now. And I think that's a real challenge, and I know you and I have spoken about things like this before, but often when you come into schools, and you'll hear people say, oh, we do a lot of social justice, and we do a lot of work, and we do a lot, but often we go through the motions, and we pay lip service to a lot of things. We have a gold coin day, and we have a mufti day, and we all bring in a gold coin, that great Australian tradition of the gold coin mufti day. And we do a lot of these things, but often we're not really taking to that deeper level, that deeper action, and getting into some issues. And I think I fear that part of it is that some of the real social justice issues that confront our world today can be politicised, and teachers are inherently back off when there's a political issue in there, and because of that, some really core and essential social justice causes become all of a sudden too taboo to talk about and too taboo to act upon, because we worry about invoking different political views and political arguments when there are people suffering and people in need and issues that need to be addressed. So that, for me, is one of the real big challenges of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the first thing that I would say to respond to that is there's political and there's political. So there's, the capital P political, when you're thinking about, members of parliament and politicians and which party reckons what and all of that kind of thing. And then you've got lowercase political. And the thing with this kind of political is everything that we do is political. Like, the clothes that we buy and where we buy them from is political. The stuff that we eat is political. And also, not doing stuff is also political. So if we try to escape, I'm really worried that if I do something that it's going to be political, we kind of need to scrap worrying about that to a degree, because, everything that we do in our lives has a political element out of it, because it all has to do with power. There's a winner, there's a loser. There's a struggle, there's a structure in place, for the way that we live our lives. So, I can understand why people might feel overwhelmed by this, and also feel really cautious that they don't want to get into that capital P political space. But there's elements of not doing stuff is also political as well.
Spot on.
The other thing that I was going to say as well is that I think people about outrage culture that exists in our society at the moment. The front page of the papers, we've got this and outrage this and that, and there's TV shows with sensationalized stories about this thing that's happening, and there's an outrage and that kind of thing. And I think that sometimes people are worried that we don't want to play up into sensationalization. We don't want to make things doom and gloom and a problem that's so overwhelming. And one of the things that Oxfam really seeks to do with the resources that we have for students is make sure that when we're posing problems, that there are really practical solutions that are there as well. Because often it's not that students or teachers that they don't care about these kinds of issues. It's normally that they feel just so overwhelmed, they have no idea where to start to even try to get all of the information. They have no idea, even if it is something that they're really passionate about, what to do next, what can I do about it? And sometimes that overwhelm can lead to a bit of paralysis or disengagement, or not wanting to get too stuck into an issue. So I think, problems with solutions next to them, is a way of, creating education resources, but also a way that, teachers should be handling issues with students and themselves,
Yeah. And I think you've just got to, without even realising, you've put things into a pedagogical framework again, because you can have this big overarching thing, but if I've got a kindergarten class or a year 2 class or a year 7 class, I'm not going to jump straight into a mathematical calculus. Well, that's the end game, but that's where we want to get to. But you break it up into bite-sized chunks of what you can deal with and what you can manage, and you tailor it to your class and to the students there, and you meet them where they are. And I love that about how you're thinking and what you're doing now. I know you and I could go on forever, but I won't go too much. But I know you'll be very busy this week, and I'm very grateful for you to stopping in, because you've got the Oxfam Close the Gap campaign on running this week, and this is one of your busiest weeks of the year that I've decided to try and get in your way.
No, my pleasure.
But look, I really do appreciate you handing over the time and having a bit of a chat with us, and good luck for not only the Close the Gap campaign that you're working on this week, but then also all of your ongoing work in connecting Oxfam and connecting with schools. Now, if teachers who do watch this or teachers who come to the chat, the Aussie Ed chat on Sunday, do want to connect with you, what's the easiest way for them to reach out to yourself or to Oxfam Australia to get involved and participate?
Yeah, cool. Well, there's two ways. If you want to chat with me or contact me directly, the best email address is schools@oxfam.org.au, and I'm the only person that answers that account. And if you want to suss out what Oxfam does in the educational space, our different projects and resources and subject resources and things like that, the website is www.oxfam.org.au/education.
Perfect. Nice and simple email for us all to follow.
Yeah. And me.
Annalise, thank you very much for giving up your time.
My pleasure.
Really appreciated being able to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to co-hosting Aussie Ed with you this weekend.
Yeah, really looking forward to Sunday. I hope we get a massive turnout of really passionate teachers. So thanks again for the opportunity.
All right. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Catch you later. Bye.